about what we have to do to work together as a community. And that when we begin to live in that love that God has gifted us with, there's all kinds of freedom. But there are certain things that can't be part of our community if we're going to be healthy and if we're going to be true and committed disciples. So he goes with that little list of things that just can't be part of us, and saying that, we can't be devouring each other, chewing each other up by the things that we say against each other, or the ways that we don't support each other, but instead he encourages us to be slaves to one another. How many of you ever think about being a slave to the person down the pew from you? Raise your hand if that's what you can't do today. Okay, it's okay. I shouldn't see you yet. We don't often think about being slaves to the people that we're gathered with around us. And that's why I thought, these lessons are not easy lessons to hear. Because we don't like to think in terms of being a slave to anyone. But in love, that is a possibility. That's something that we're called to do. May not do perfectly, but we continue to attempt to do in the way that God has called us to do it. Then, of course, you get to Jesus talking to people and saying, come, join me. And they're all excited, Yeah, Jesus, I'm going to join you. I'll follow you anywhere. But they weren't expecting that things would be easy, that things would be difficult for them. They wanted life to be easier for them if they followed Jesus. But Jesus reminded them, following me takes real commitment. Real commitment. And I always I can't remember they'll come to me after the sermon, so maybe ask me later. He wrote about how grace is this wonderful gift that we have, and that it's free. But the thing about grace is that it's not cheap. It's not cheap. Discipleship has a very high cost. Very, very high cost. Now, when we start looking at what Jesus was asking those people that wanted to follow, who wouldn't want to bury their parents? Who wouldn't want to say goodbye to their family if they had decided to really follow Jesus? Who wants to think about not having a place to stay? So, those are very hard teachings to think about, and think about then also applying them to our lives. But without going literal on it, basically what we need to remember is that once we decide to put our lives in Jesus' hands, that it's a big commitment. A commitment that involves sacrifice. And that involves really trusting that God will provide those things that we need. And it also is a commitment to be part of the community. So then I'm thinking, you're probably wondering, so are you going to end now? That's a lot of stuff to think about. That's what, where's the good news in all of this? And I think that one of the things that we often do as churches is we think about things that we've done in the past. A lot of people say, I remember back in the day, St.Matthew's this and that, or St.Matthew's and St.Joseph used to this and that and the other. Well, it can be a little discouraging sometimes when you think about all the what we call glory days, and you want to go back and live it again. Well, we're not to live those things over again, but they are gifts to us. The things that have happened in the past and all those things that we hold up and that we're proud of as a congregation about our history are things that are meant to encourage us. Things that are meant to remind us that, you all have been blessed mightily and can do amazing things. Because when you think about the history of our parish, there were plenty of times when people, I'm sure, thought, how would we ever make it? When people were afraid that they were going to be caught up and sent into slavery, literally, by coming together to worship, it seemed that it appeared that there would be no more St. Matthew's. couldn't even come together to worship. But even in that adversity, people were able to remember, God has blessed us in the past. God's not going to change us. And so we can remember these ways that God has blessed us and be encouraged and get up and continue to follow God and to step out and try to do the greatest things, even when it seems a little risky. That's what that past is there for. And if you recall the song that we read, that psalmist just remember, I'm going to cry out to God and I'm going to think about all those ways that God has blessed me. And whenever I read that song, I think, whatever difficult thing we're going through right now as a parish, or whatever difficult thing we're going through as individuals, we have hope. We have a God that has been continually committed to us. And we have things that have happened in the past to remind us that I'm here. God says, I'm here for you. Don't give up. Don't try to live in the past. Just remember that I've always been with you and that you have more to do. So, as we think about our life as a church, and as we think about our individual discipleship and how we're living that, I really, I thought about where we're headed as a congregation and where we're headed as individuals. And one of the things that a lot of mainline denominations are facing is, what do we do with ourselves in this current day? How are we to remain faithful when the ways that we've come together before haven't necessarily been filling up our churches, haven't been blessing us with all the financial resources that we think we need in order to do the things that we like to do, or even the things that we're called to do? How do we do those things? And we're not the only ones asking those questions. And so I would say to us as a parent, whenever those church experts come in and help you try to work out a plan for how to build your church and how to move into the future, they always ask the same question. Now, I think some of you are thinking of that question right now. They ask you, so, if your congregation wasn't there, would anybody notice in the community? Would the community notice if you were not there? Would they miss you if you were not there? And without a doubt, I tell you right now that our community surrounding us would be devastated if we were not a community here that was witnessing to the goodness of God, Jesus Christ. So that's something that we should be very excited about. And yes, I know on the other hand, it means that it's a lot to live up to. To think of ourselves as being a beacon of hope in our community means a lot of work. It doesn't mean that we will get to do things with easy answers. But that is some really good news that others are looking to us to see and feel the love of Jesus. And many places can't claim that and don't have that hope that is there to encourage them in their future. And so as we think about moving forward in our lives as individuals and as a community, I would like to ask all of us to really think about our discipleship throughout the summer and think about the mantles that you've worn and laid aside, or the mantle that you have yet to pick up, the work that is still to be done. And one of those ways that we can really focus on that, we have our 5 areas of growth. And that's a really good plan for discipleship. And that will help us as we move forward. And not, we can't spend our time worrying about what we don't have. We can spend our time focusing on what we do have, each other, a vision that is life-giving, and that can grow this